In my previous life, the moment the human trafficker rushed over, I saved my brother Jeremy but was captured myself. 15 years later, I was found by my biological parents. However, I never enjoyed a single day of affection from my family and was repeatedly framed by a false daughter. Jeremy always walked hand in hand with the false daughter, looking at me with disdain. My only sister will always be Judy. As he wished, I was killed by the false daughter. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day we encountered the human trafficker. 6-year-old Jeremy looked panic-stricken. Sister, save me. This time, I didn't rush over as I had in my previous life. Instead, I replied indifferently, brother, let's meet again in 15 years. Quick, catch that little boy. Don't let him get away. Urgent shouts rang in my ears. I suddenly came to my senses and found myself sitting in a children's go-kart. 6-year-old Jeremy was running and crying. The scene was all too familiar. I soon realized that I had traveled back to when I was 6 years old, the day I was captured by the human trafficker. Soon, the fierce old woman caught Jeremy and headed for a van across the road. Sister, save me. Jeremy was panic-stricken. In my previous life, seeing my brother being captured, I immediately drove the go-kart towards the old woman. The old woman was knocked to the ground, caught off guard, and Jeremy managed to break free. Seeing this, I yelled, brother, get on quickly. Jeremy quickly ran over and got on the go-kart, but I was thrown out at a turn. The furious old woman got up from the ground and rushed over to grab me. Ultimately, Jeremy, out of fear, didn't stop the go-kart and quickly escaped, remaining safe. But I was captured by the human traffickers, beginning a tragic and difficult life. Sister, save me. Jeremy's cries continued. The old woman and her accomplice had obviously noticed me. Without delay, I drove away, watching Jeremy crying in the distance. I calmly responded, brother, let's meet again in 15 years. After Jeremy was abducted by the traffickers, our parents were devastated. They continuously posted missing person notices and rewards on various television and newspapers. However, it was futile. Recalling the household I was sold to in my previous life, even going to the market in town took half a day. Jeremy's fate could be no better. Although our parents were indeed heartbroken, their hearts torn apart, it didn't matter. They would forget, just like in my previous life, after losing me, their biological daughter, they were devastated, living as though dead. Later, out of a longing for a daughter, they adopted another girl. They poured all their love into this adopted daughter. They gave her the best of everything, cherished her as if she might break, coddled her as if she might melt. Even after they found me, their biological daughter, it didn't shake the adopted daughter's position in the family at all. Most outrageously, when the adopted daughter became ill and needed a kidney transplant, they both kneeled down and begged me, their biological daughter, to donate a kidney. So, nothing is irreplaceable, not even parents or children. Time passed quickly, and it had been almost a year since Jeremy's disappearance. I always mentioned to my parents how lonely I was every day, missing my brother terribly. Every time I brought this up, my mother would cry bitterly. She couldn't help but suggest to her father, why don't we adopt a boy? It seemed like I had guessed the plot would unfold this way. So when my parents told me about their decision, can we adopt an older brother? I want an older brother to take care of me in the future. My parents looked solemn, yet they did not object. Since we were going to adopt an older brother, it certainly required my consent. My parents took me to many orphanages and we met numerous boys of similar age. But none satisfied me. One day, we arrived at a rather remote and poorly maintained orphanage. After failing to find the person I was looking for, we were just about to leave. The plump director suggested to my mother that we adopt a girl instead, mentioning they had a girl about my age who was very well behaved, polite, and intelligent, perhaps tired from the constant traveling for this matter. My mother agreed to meet her. When the girl walked out, I was stunned on the spot. It was her, Judy. The adopted daughter who had been the apple of her parents' eye in their past lives. She seemed just as shocked upon seeing me, her initially sweet smile turning into a face full of astonishment as she blurted out, how could this be? We faced each other. My mother frowned slightly. Director Max, is this the girl you just mentioned? Director Max was somewhat embarrassed. Mrs. Smith, I apologize. Judy might be a bit overwhelmed seeing you for the first time. Judy. These are the chairperson and his wife of the Smith Corporation. Don't be impolite. Judy seemed to regain her composure and quickly switched to being very cautious and polite. Uncle, Auntie, hello, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to react that way just now. My mother nodded, examining her with a probing look, then asked a few questions. Judy responded smoothly, her demeanor compliant. After the conversation, it was clear that my mother quite liked her. Even my father showed a pleased expression. But what to do? The person who now held Judy's fate in their hands, it was me, Nancy. Nancy, shall we take this sister home? My mother whispered to me gently, no. As soon as the words fell, Judy's face turned pale. She looked at me anxiously and in disbelief. Her lips parted as if wanting to say something, but she held back in the end. Such a straightforward attitude surprised my mother. She seemed to want to persuade me. Actually, having another sister at home would be quite nice. You could wear pretty dresses together, style your hair together, and play hide and seek. No, seeing my firm attitude, my mother had no choice but to give up. She sighed lightly. I'm sorry, Director Max. I'm afraid we cannot adopt this girl. That's all right, Mrs. Smith. Director Max expressed his understanding. No, just then, Judy suddenly burst out crying. Why is this happening, Mom? I'm Judy, Dad. Don't you recognize me? My father and mother were taken aback. Staring bewildered at the girl in front of them, Judy rushed to her mother and hugged her tightly, tears streaming down her face as if she was afraid her mother would leave at any moment. Mom, I've been waiting here for you and Dad for so long. Please take me home. I don't want to stay here another day. Where is my brother? Why didn't he come? Her mother, startled by Judy's bizarre words, quickly pushed her away. What's gotten into you? Child, why are you calling me Mom? Is something wrong with your mind? Judy paused, wiped her tears, and explained, no, Mom, my mind is clear. In my previous life, you came here to take me back. No one there except me seemed to understand what she was talking about. Her parents had completely changed their expressions. Perhaps they hadn't expected that the child recommended to them by Director Max was mentally unstable. Director Max's expression was awkward and uncomfortable, and he quickly called someone to take Judy away. Judy was both shocked and scared, kicking and hitting others, struggling hysterically. No, I won't go. I want to go home with Mom and Dad. Get out, get out. I am the true heiress of the Smith Group. That woman is an imposter, Mom. I am your real precious daughter. Judy was carried out by two nurses as if she was a little chicken. For a long time after, her heart-wrenching cries could still be heard in the courtyard. Mother, still shaken, grabbed my hand and hurried out. Nancy, let's go quickly. We can't stay here. There are mentally ill people. In my previous life, I was the cherished jewel in my mother's eyes. In this life, I've become someone with a mental illness. Even I couldn't bear my mother's completely changed attitude, let alone Judy. After 3 long months of searching, I finally found Lucas in a welfare home in a neighboring city. When the director led me to him, he was fighting with a few boys. His face was bruised, one eye was blackened, and his arm was bleeding, though beaten badly. His eyes were defiant and fierce like a little wolf. He never gave up. Tears welled up in my eyes instantly. In my previous life, whenever other kids in the orphanage bullied me, he would fight back for me, even if it meant fighting 10 at a time, even if he ended up looking like a beaten pig, even if the director punished him by not allowing him to eat for 3 days. He always comforted me with a nonchalant tone. Don't cry. Didn't I teach them a lesson for you? But you got beaten so badly. Doesn't it hurt? A real man doesn't worry about such small injuries. Don't worry. I promise to protect you. And I always keep my word. The resolute words of the little boy still echoed in my ears. Lucas, this time it's my turn to protect you. Hearing that I wanted to take Lucas home, my parents expressed their confusion. Clearly, they had heard about his usual deeds from other kids in the welfare home. But I didn't care and insisted on doing so. With no other options, they finally agreed. And so, 8-year-old Lucas came home with me, seeing the Smith family's splendid living room. The luxurious and bright crystal chandeliers, the soft and magnificent Persian carpets. He seemed a bit restrained, subconsciously hiding his tattered cuffs behind his back. Why do you want to adopt me? I led him to the room on the 2nd floor, pulled open the thick curtains, and the floor-to-ceiling windows made the room bright and spacious. The sunlight filtered through a ginkgo tree outside the window, casting mottled light. I turned around and gave him a warm smile, because in this life, it's our turn to enjoy the good days. He obviously didn't understand, looking at me puzzled. Who is this? Lucas asked, pointing to a picture frame on the bookshelf. It was Jeremy sitting in a toy car, taken on his 6th birthday last year. Nobody. I picked up the frame and without hesitation, threw it into the trash. I remember, in my past life, Jeremy coldly told me that he would only ever acknowledge Judy as his sister. Fine, in this life, I don't need him as a brother either. After a while, Lucas looked up at me again. His eyes, clear-cut in black and white, conveyed a mix of faint confusion and defiance. How long do you plan to keep me? 3 months or half a year? From what I knew, Lucas had already been abandoned twice before. One couple had adopted him purely for show, to boost the reputation of their factory, with heavy promotion by the newspapers. They brought Lucas home and then neglected him. Every day, Lucas was beaten black and blue by the couple's chubby son, enduring it all just to be able to attend school and avoid the shame of being seen as an orphan without parents. At only 5 years old, he had borne it all. Eventually, the beatings from the chubby boy got worse, even pushing him down the stairs from the 2nd floor. And when the couple's factory went bankrupt, they decided to send Lucas back to the orphanage. Unable to endure it any longer before leaving that home, Lucas fought back fiercely against the chubby boy, making him cry bitterly. From then on, Lucas realized that to avoid being bullied, fists were the only solution. About half a year later, Lucas was adopted again by a middle-aged couple who couldn't have children of their own. He was luckier this time. Although they weren't wealthy, they treated him decently. At least he wasn't subjected to physical abuse and didn't have to live in constant torment. However, the peace didn't last long as the wife got pregnant, almost without thinking. The couple sent Lucas back to the orphanage. After that, Lucas gave up hope. He no longer expected anything from being adopted. His temper grew worse, and he often got into fights, keeping to himself, until years later, when I showed up at the orphanage, 2 isolated children slowly became friends. Reflecting on this, I walked over to Lucas and said earnestly, "It's not going to be 3 months or half a year. You can stay in this home forever, until you decide you want to leave." He stared back at me, his dark, shiny eyes like the dazzling stars in the night sky. For a long time, he said nothing. Despite my parents' initial opposition to bringing Lucas home, they quickly came around. Nobody knew better than I did how intelligent Lucas was. After just 3 piano lessons, he could play a complete pop song from memory. After 2 months of Go lessons, he had surpassed his teacher. In terms of academics, he started studying 5th grade math while in the 3rd grade. My parents' faces began to wear more smiles, especially when they heard teachers endlessly praising Lucas. They nurtured him just as they had nurtured me. They enrolled him in classes he was interested in. They took him to various high-profile gatherings, letting Lucas mingle with other wealthy and influential peers. Lucas was handsome and academically exceptional. Although slightly aloof, his flaws were minor compared to his virtues. Some prominent figures even started plotting to make connections with my father for their daughters. My father was pleased, yet he politely declined. After all, they were still too young. From then on, my parents paid even closer attention to Lucas, becoming stricter about his education. He was treated no differently than me, their own daughter. Lucas and I became as close as we had been in our past lives. Today, after school, I returned home. Suddenly, a figure darted into the middle of the road, startling Bob, the driver, into a panic. He jerked the steering wheel sharply, causing the car to drift uncontrollably to the other side. Lucas, with his quick reflexes, dashed forward and held me tightly in his arms. With a loud bang, the car crashed into the flower bed by the roadside. Lucas checked me over anxiously. "Are you all right?" he asked. I exhaled and shook my head. "I'm fine." Fortunately, only the front of the car was damaged, and all 3 of us were relatively unscathed. Bob, pale with fright, angrily got out of the car only to find a little girl standing opposite him. "Bob, it's me, Judy," the girl said with a delighted expression. "Kid, do you realize how dangerous that was?" "Where are your parents?" Bob asked sternly. Judy looked disappointed. When she saw me and Lucas in the car, her eyes widened in shock. "Nancy, why are you together?" Lucas turned to me, puzzled. "Do you know her?" I shrugged. "No idea." Judy turned pale and shook her head frantically. "This can't be happening. Where is Jeremy? Where did Jeremy go?" Bob also turned to ask me, "Miss, is this your friend?" "I don't know her, Uncle Bob. Let's just go," I urged. Hearing this, Bob quickly got back into the car and started it. Judy became desperate and began pounding on the car window. Nancy, you can't leave. I need to go with you to see Mom. Stop, please stop. I ignored her, complaining emotionlessly. What a stroke of bad luck today, running into a lunatic. Uncle Bob, when we get to the complex, tell the security not to let any crazy people in. Sure thing, Miss Nancy. The car sped away, leaving Judy collapsing in despair, chasing and shouting behind us. After arriving home, I recounted the road incident to my mother, my heart still racing. That was close. We almost had a car accident. Mom, that girl couldn't really be crazy. Could she? How did she even find our house? Clearly frightened as well, my mother angrily called Director Max. Apologies were profusely made on the other end of the line, and they assured her that they would soon come to take Judy away. That settled the matter. Not long after, there were some complications with the company's business in Europe, and my father planned to leave immediately. He told my mother that he might be gone for a long time, perhaps 2 or 3 years, implying he wouldn't return home anytime soon due to the branch office's affairs. Remembering the persistent Judy, I suggested without hesitation, Mom, why don't we move and live with Dad? The suggestion was quickly accepted by my mother. Just 2 weeks later, our family of 4 boarded a plane to France. As the plane soared high above the clouds, I looked down quietly and gestured a goodbye. Goodbye, Jeremy, Judy, if fate allows. Let's meet again in 14 years. During these long, hard, and trying days, you all need to keep pushing forward, make sure nothing unfortunate happens, and don't think about ending your life. Live like an ant, in poverty, misery, and without any dignity. After all, that's how I got through my past life. I believe that one day, we will meet again. After walking out of the terminal, I immediately spotted Uncle Bob holding a sign with my name on it. Despite the years, he looked just the same. I hurriedly waved at him, however. He didn't look in my direction at all. It wasn't until I approached him and took the sign from his hands, smiling, that I said, Uncle Bob, what are you thinking? I've been calling you. Are you Miss Nancy? He stared at me wide-eyed, incredulous. How did you get so tall and beautiful? I was always beautiful. Uncle Bob nodded excitedly, his eyes slightly reddened. Yes, yes, Miss Nancy has always been beautiful. He then glanced behind me. Did you come back alone? What about the chairman's wife and young Master Lucas? They'll be back in a couple of days. After Lucas's last performance, you know my parents, they wouldn't miss any of his shows. Uncle Bob clearly agreed with my comment. That's true, every time the chairman calls me, he can't stop talking about young Master Lucas. He always talks about how Lucas performed last month in Vienna, and next month he's going to perform at the White House. Sometimes I want to ask about you, but I can't even get a word in. People who don't know might think Lucas is his biological son. I smiled and shook my head. Uncle Bob, it seems you want to ask about Kevin, but you're too shy to interrupt my dad. Kevin is Uncle Bob's son who went to study in France 10 years ago and has been living with us. Pfft, I don't want to ask about that rascal. He only contacts me when he needs money. Uncle Bob rambled on. On the way back, I noticed that the city's CBD was filled with huge posters of Lucas. The genius pianist returns to his homeland after 14 years for his first domestic performance, a headline that obviously worked well. The old house we used to live in had long been sold. 3 years ago, my father bought a villa on top of a hill in the suburbs, with a very pleasant view, and it was just finished last year. This was my first time stepping into this house. The decor was very nice, close to the house of my dreams. It wasn't in vain that Lucas and I drew hundreds of sketches before the decoration, just to design the most perfect and comfortable house, so our parents could have a comfortable place to live when they returned to the country. Uncle Bob started rambling again. Miss Nancy, why do you like living on such a high mountain? The view is nice, but you young people need to be careful when driving. The mountain roads are winding and there's a cliff below. You really shouldn't drive fast. I know, Uncle Bob. While I was taking a bath, I heard the phone ringing outside. I was too tired from the flight to move, so I didn't want to answer it, but the person on the other end was persistent, and the phone rang for about 10 minutes. I had no choice but to get up and answer it. What are you doing? A clear and warm voice sounded in my ear. Wrapped in a bathrobe, I lounged lazily on the sofa. Master Lucas, I'm having a bath. Is it absolutely necessary to talk right now? The phone line went silent for a moment. I've booked a ticket for the day after tomorrow. Lucas's voice carried a hint of fatigue, probably from practicing the piano too much these past few days. All right, I'll make sure to welcome you properly. A light chuckle came through the phone. By the way, how was the performance? Not bad, congratulations. Well, it's already 11:30. You should head to bed. You can't afford to stay up late. A soft sigh brushed past my ears. Got it. Good night, love you. There was a brief silence on the other end before he responded. What did you just say? Good night. The next part, love you. The other end fell silent again, as if even breathing was momentarily suspended. I laughed and said, what? Can't I say that? I heard the fans saying it when they came to pick you up last time. 3 seconds later, the line went dead with a beep. 2 days later, Uncle Bob picked up my parents from the airport, but I didn't see Lucas. Apparently, he was taken away by the event organizers and might only return in the evening. Well, that's okay. I had even asked the aunt to cook his favorite dishes. Seems like he'll miss out on those. As I was about to eat, Lincoln, the butler, hurriedly came in to say someone was looking for us. Looking for whom? I asked casually. They said they're looking for the chairman and his wife. My parents looked at each other, both visibly perplexed. Us, who is it? Lincoln, the butler, seemed troubled but finally spoke up. He said, he is the chairman's son. 16 years had passed since I last saw Jeremy. His clothes weren't great but not terrible either. At least they were clean. He was very dark and thin. His fingers were rough and covered with calluses, resembling those of a construction worker. He trembled all over, his eyes fixed on my parents, his lips pursed then parted, over and over. Dad, Mom, is it really you? Judy approached, her eyes brimming with tears, her expression one of intense emotion, as if she might start crying at any moment. Brother, there's no mistake, they are your biological parents. My mother walked over in a daze, her eyes unwavering as she stared at the man in front of her and slowly said, are you, Jeremy? Jeremy's tears finally fell as he broke down sobbing. Mom, I am Jeremy, all these years, I kept reminding myself never to forget my real name, so that one day you could recognize me. Mom, I finally found you. Tears streamed down my mother's face as she covered it and sobbed bitterly. Even my usually stoic father couldn't help but let his tears flow freely at this moment. He stumbled forward to Jeremy, holding his face in his hands. Is it really you, Jeremy? Are you my son? Dad? Father and son hugged and wept bitterly. For a moment, the living room was filled with their wails. I wondered if I should also try to stir up emotions and have a tearful reunion with my siblings. Despite my efforts, not a single tear fell. Instead, I felt a sense of deep satisfaction, as if a great vengeance had been achieved. I remembered the day I was brought back to the Smith family in my previous life. Jeremy was dressed in a simple blue shirt and dark trousers, his demeanor proud and arrogant, much like a corporate tycoon on television. He stood on the staircase, looking down at me with a sense of superiority. His whole presence radiated a cold indifference that seemed to keep others at a great distance. Dad, Mom, is she really Nancy? Are you sure you didn't make a mistake, even after his father's confirmation? The disdain in Jeremy's eyes was unmistakable. Judy, dressed in a Chanel dress, walked up to him with a displeased expression. Brother, is she really your sister? Seeing Judy pouting unhappily, Jeremy couldn't help but smile and playfully ruffled her hair. Silly, you will always be my only sister. I clutched the corner of my clothes, feeling uneasy as I watched the siblings playfully tease each other. Although I was standing in the living room, in that moment, I felt as though I was standing amidst dust. Imagine Jeremy from his past life, arrogant, prideful, and seemingly untouchable. Now look at the man before us, dark-skinned, thin, an unremarkable migrant worker. He's even shorter than he was in his past life, barely reaching 5 feet 7 inches. It must be due to the harsh living conditions and poor nutrition. Are you Nancy? After his sobbing ceased, Jeremy finally noticed me. I smiled politely at him. Yes, I am. He walked over, scrutinizing me from head to toe. His gaze carried a certain, discomforting quality. It's been a long time. His tone was cool. Indeed, it had been a long time. 16 years since we last parted. Fate really does have its own plans in mysterious ways. Yet, I had extended our time apart by another year due to my busy schedule with school work and graduation looming. It's been a long time, brother. Jeremy nodded. as if recalling something. Right, Mom, Dad, let me introduce you. This is my sworn sister, Judy. Ah, these two must truly be in love, in a sibling sort of way, but whereas in the past life they were a duo of wealth, now they were a pair of struggling siblings. Without her luxurious Chanel suits, Judy no longer possessed her former charm and imposing elegance. Instead, she appeared with rough skin, a sallow complexion, and a body skinny as a twig, topped with a plain and listless hairstyle. Her clothes, though new, looked cheap. Even the daughter of our housekeeper seemed more elegant than her. Noticing my gaze shifting towards her, an unmistakable awkwardness and embarrassment emerged on Judy's face, followed by a look of deep resentment and hostility. It was clear, she hated me, and she hated me intensely. It's not hard to understand. I was the main cause of her miserable and impoverished life. She was almost adopted by my parents, but it hardly matters. Her hatred for me could never match the level of hatred I felt for her the day Jeremy kidnapped me to the hospital to forcibly donate a kidney to her. During that time, I lay on the hospital bed, wishing for death, suffering unimaginably. I hated Jeremy, Judy, and my parents. I hated every single one of them. If I could, I would have wished for us all to perish together, to become nothing but ash. But what was the use? It was pointless. After the surgery, my nemesis recovered fully, and her family rejoiced. Meanwhile, my surgical wound became infected due to poor healing, and my health deteriorated further. Eventually, my kidney function failed, and I died within a couple of years. It was clear our parents had not yet realized that Judy was the child they almost adopted years ago. They politely expressed their gratitude to her for helping them find their son. They thanked her for her support and care of Jeremy in the past and warmly invited her to stay with them. There's no favor without a motive. Judy had gone through all this trouble to bring Jeremy here, surely for this very invitation. Presumably, over these past several years, she was probably on her way to find Jeremy. After acknowledging the familial connection, there were still procedures to be followed. Although it was almost certain there was no mistake, Jeremy himself suggested taking a DNA test, just to be safe. His father did not object. That entire afternoon, his mother sat with Jeremy on the sofa, talking and wiping away tears. She asked him how he had been over the years and recalled stories from his childhood, as if there were endless things to say. I heard the gist of it. Jeremy was 11 when his foster father passed away, leaving his foster mother to raise him alone. Because of their poor financial situation, he only completed the first year of junior high before dropping out to work. He collected garbage, worked in factories, delivered packages, and did manual labor. With such a rich set of experiences, I have no idea how Judy managed to find him. Hearing that her son hadn't even finished middle school, his mother's eyes reddened again. His father sat beside her, silent. As they sat in silence, noises came from outside the yard, sounding like a vehicle pulling in. Soon after, footsteps echoed in the living room. A tall young man, pushing a simple suitcase, entered. Dad, Mom, why are you all sitting here? Lucas removed the gold-rimmed glasses from his nose, revealing his bright, expressive face under the light. He looked curiously at us on the sofa. My son is back. Suddenly, his mother stood up, her expression unexpectedly flustered. His father also appeared confused. Have you eaten? Are you hungry? Should I ask the housekeeper to make you some supper? His mother instinctively distanced herself from Jeremy and walked towards Lucas, her words flowing out in a stream of concern. I've eaten, Mom. Lucas smiled at her. Who are these two? He was obviously referring to Jeremy and Judy. His mother looked tense, seemingly unsure of how to respond, and instinctively looked at his father for help. His father's lips moved as he glanced at Jeremy and then at Judy. They are children from a distant relative's family. Hearing this, his mother's face showed a trace of guilt, but she seemed somewhat relieved as well. Yes. Children from a distant relative's family, she replied unnaturally. I sat leisurely on a single sofa, watching Jeremy's dark face gradually turn pale. Lucas, hearing his mother's words, nodded politely at the two on the sofa as a greeting. Jeremy remained expressionless, not responding. Judy's gaze lingered on Lucas's face for a long time, lost in thought. Mom and Dad, I'm going upstairs to take a shower. Hearing Lucas was going to shower, his mother quickly replied, Okay. I'll go run the water for you. You must be exhausted these past few days. no need, you stay and chat with Dad and the guests. Nancy, help me with my luggage later, Lucas commanded me without any hesitation. Why should I carry it? The young master gave me a look that said I should figure it out for myself. No reason. After Lucas went upstairs, the living room felt especially silent. His father sighed deeply and guiltily explained, "I'm sorry, Jeremy. Lucas has a very important performance next week. To not affect his mood, I had to do this." As soon as the show ended, Dad would speak to him frankly. "Right, Jeremy, you won't be angry with Mom and Dad, will you?" Mother, realizing that her recent behavior had been rather extreme, cautiously looked at Jeremy. Still, she knew that if it happened again, she would likely do the same. Parents always favor children who are presentable and can be a source of pride, don't they? From my experiences in a past life, I know this all too well. Jeremy's clenched fists gradually relaxed. He looked at his mother, his previously dark and murky eyes clearing up. "Of course not, Mom, I understand." Hearing this, Mother seemed to be relieved. That's good, that's good." I silently scoffed at Mother's naivety. No one could easily let go of having the love of their biological parents stolen by a stranger for 16 years, just like me in my previous life, and Jeremy in this life. 30 years in the East, 30 years in the West. My dear brother, have you finally experienced the feeling of being heartbroken yet powerless? You really dislike someone, but to avoid disappointing your parents, you have to try hard to please and flatter that person, your own biological parents, your own siblings, but you can never truly fit in with them. At the dinner table, they are a family of 4, you are just an outsider. At parties, whenever guests ask about you, your parents dodge and weave their words. Then, the charming, poised imposter steps forward to ease the situation for the adults. She is the daughter of our housekeeper, recently came to the city looking for work. How ironic, you, the true daughter, are referred to as the housekeeper's daughter by the imposter, yet, no one comes forward to clarify the truth, not even your own parents, not even your own brother. They tacitly accept this lie, if it weren't for the vivid memories of childhood. You might actually start believing you really are the housekeeper's daughter. The next morning, I walked downstairs and saw Lucas already sitting at the dining table with a glass of milk. "Good morning, brother." He choked a bit, a suspicious blush crossing his face. "What did you call me?" I couldn't help but chuckle. "Perhaps you've aged so quickly recently that your ears aren't working well." Lucas gave me a steady look. "You always say such strange things." I shrugged, nonplussed. "Is calling you, brother, strange?" As Lucas was about to respond, Jeremy and Judy came down the stairs. "Morning," he greeted them politely. Jeremy nodded slightly, his expression cool and silent. Judy, on the other hand, greeted Lucas with a warm smile. "Morning." Lucas, always perceptive, quickly noticed the undisguised hostility from someone at the table towards him, which puzzled him. I cleared my throat and said in French, "I'm going to tell you something, don't be too shocked." The 3 of them looked at me. Jeremy and Judy didn't understand French, at least, they didn't in my last life. By their expressions, they likely still didn't in this one. Then, without any hesitation, I added, "This person is my long-lost brother, whom we just reunited with our parents yesterday afternoon." Lucas looked surprised. Subconsciously, I replied in French, "Why didn't you tell me the truth last night? You have a performance coming up. And they didn't want to distract you from your practice because of this." The other person pondered thoughtfully. "No wonder. What are you guys talking about?" Judy suddenly rudely interrupted my conversation with Lucas. "We were commenting on how good this bread tastes." "Why can't you say the bread tastes good in Chinese?" Did she forget that in a past life, she and Jeremy took advantage of my poor English to relentlessly criticize my outfits and appearance in English at the dinner table? If I hadn't secretly recorded it on my phone and found a translation app, I would never have known how deep her hostility towards me ran. "I will speak Chinese if I want, and French if I want. It's none of your business." Judy's face, rough-skinned, turned from green to pale. She probably saw herself in the role of a past life. "Isn't it rude to behave like this at the same dining table?" Jeremy's expression was cold. "Here comes another hypocrite. I am really fed up with these fools. So you think making that face is polite? This is my house. I can make whatever face I want." Jeremy straightened his back, his gaze sharp. Just one night had passed, and his demeanor and aura were completely different from yesterday afternoon. In a past life, I was always cautious and never dared to confront him directly, until he forcibly tied me up and took me to the hospital for Judy's sake, which led to a complete fallout between us. But what was the use? He unblinkingly ordered the doctor to proceed with the operation. Fine, in this life, we both have old scores to settle. This is also my home. I'll speak however I want. It's not my fault you don't understand. If it weren't for your cowardice, running away alone, would I have ended up in this situation? Jeremy slammed the table fiercely, his eyes burning into me. He finally spoke his mind. Do you know how miserable I've been all these years? Where were you when I was being beaten half to death by human traffickers? When I was feeding pigs and chickens in the countryside? Where were you when I dropped out of school at 12 to scavenge through trash? Where were you, sleeping under bridges? Where were you when I was on the construction site and stepped on a nail? Where were you by the end? Jeremy was completely roaring, emotions flared, and saliva splattered. Breakfast was ruined, even the dining table was no longer desirable, covered in spit. I disdainfully wiped a droplet from my wrist with a tissue. This action only further stung Jeremy, his eyes bloodshot as he glared at me. I just smirked coldly, as if he was the only one ever beaten by traffickers, who hasn't fed pigs, who hasn't scavenged through trash, who hasn't slept under a bridge. Only later, I was sent to an orphanage after several twists and turns, but life in the orphanage was even darker, harassed by the director, taken advantage of by older boys, whipped by the dorm supervisor. Did I ever complain? What's going on? What are you arguing about? My father and mother came in from outside, looking at us suspiciously. It's nothing. Lucas was the first to react. We were just chatting. My mother looked anxiously to the side. Jeremy, you didn't say anything, did you, Jeremy? Still furious, his expression dark. Mom, who exactly is your biological son? Can't I even speak the truth? My mother was speechless, unable to utter a word. After 3 seconds, she anxiously explained to Lucas, Son, I'm sorry, Mom didn't mean to keep the truth from you yesterday. Don't be mad at her. In my heart, you will always be the son I love the most, even though I knew my mother always doted on Lucas. Saying such words in front of her own son seemed a bit too much. It made me feel surprisingly satisfied. Jeremy looked at his mother in shock. His expression changed from disbelief to disappointment, then to despair, and finally settled into a silent stillness. On the other hand, Lucas, holding his forehead and visibly embarrassed, said, Mom, I'm fine. He was at a loss for words. Deep down, he probably thought, you should go and see your own son. Eventually, Lucas made the excuse that he needed to practice the piano and quickly left the scene. As soon as he was gone, Jeremy spoke calmly. Dad, Mom, when do you plan to send him away? His mother was momentarily taken aback. Send who away? I am your biological son. Now that I have returned, it's time to get rid of the unnecessary people. Do you mean, let Lucas leave our home? That's right, Jeremy said succinctly. Of course not, both parents said in unison. His mother looked at Jeremy incredulously. What exactly about Lucas bothers you so much that you want him gone the day after you return? Jeremy's lips curled into a cold smile. Mom, I am the one you gave birth to. I've suffered and struggled all these years away from home, never once enjoying a day of care and love from you and Dad. And now I have to come back and deal with this pretender. Have you ever thought about me? His mother's brow furrowed, and her expression grew displeased. I know you've suffered all these years. And your father and I will make it up to you. But Lucas isn't responsible for your situation. How can you blame him for these things? Jeremy was momentarily speechless. He was clearly disappointed with his mother. Dad, do you feel the same? He asked. His father looked at his eldest son, a trace of guilt in his eyes, but his tone was firm. Jeremy, your mother is right. You've had a hard life, and we do owe you for that, and we hope to make it up to you in the future. But none of this is Lucas's fault. He is innocent, and we won't ask him to leave this home. Instead, we hope you can get along with him. Make it up to me. Jeremy laughed bitterly, as if he heard a great joke. How can you make it up to me? With money? Don't forget, that money is already mine. The entire Smith Corporation is mine, because I am your biological son. How many times do I have to say it? If you want to make it up to me, unless you can turn back time, go back 16 years. Can you do that? Jeremy's hysterical yelling filled the living room. In a fit of rage, he overturned the dining table, and dishes and cups clattered to the floor. breaking into pieces. I must admit, he did and said what I had wanted to do and say in a previous life. Yes, our parents always talk about making things right, but what use is compensation? What we lost is precious time. The carefree childhood and the prime of our youth that should have been ours, yet. When my parents asked me to get along with Judy in my past life, Jeremy was still making snide remarks. You'll never replace Judy's position. In this life, I have only one sister, her. If it weren't for the fact that you're related to me by blood, I would have kicked you out of this house long ago. In the end, he forced me to apologize to Judy. Crying, I asked him why he treated me this way. After all, I am his biological sister. Because you are unlucky, you don't deserve to live in our home. That was his response. It turns out everyone speaks without feeling the pain. Only by putting oneself in another's shoes can one truly understand their feelings. Jeremy, oh Jeremy, in this life, it's only your own misfortune to blame for not being fortunate enough to enjoy living in this home. After that day, a clear rift developed between our parents and Jeremy, with both sides avoiding each other. It seems neither side intends to compromise. One side is adamant about forcing Lucas out. The other side would never agree to that. In my view, Jeremy is far too overconfident about himself. So what if he is their biological child? Lucas has earned so much honor and stardom for our parents, making them celebrity parents respected and admired by many. Wherever they go, they are top-tier celebrities. Now they are supposed to give up their carefully nurtured adopted piano prodigy for a son who dropped out of middle school to work as a laborer. People aren't fools. 2 days later, our father initiated a conversation with Jeremy in the living room. He suggested hiring some tutors for him for a while, then sending him abroad to study. Jeremy thought he misheard. You want to send me away? Of course not. Father didn't understand why he would interpret it that way. Jeremy, you didn't have the opportunity to study before, but now it's different. Dad thinks you're still young and should learn more. Broaden your horizons and mindset. Why do I need to change my mindset and go abroad? I can start working with you at the company in a few days. You just need to teach me how to manage and run the Smith Group. Father was stunned by his response, speechless for a long moment. I kindly reminded from the side, brother, Dad hasn't been well these past 2 years. So the main decision-making power of the Smith Group is now in my hands. Jeremy's face changed instantly, and he stood up abruptly. Why is that? What do you mean why, Nancy? How much more do you want to take from me? I couldn't help but laugh. Since when did the Smith Group become yours? I am the eldest son of this family. It should rightfully be mine. Jeremy exploded like a firecracker. So what if you're the eldest son? The Smith Group belongs to Dad. And it's not your place to call the shots. If I say it's mine, then it is mine. You all owe me, and you must compensate me. He must be crazy to think the entire Smith Group should compensate him. Enough. Father finally lost his temper, shouting forcefully, how can a laborer manage a company? Are you daydreaming? If you want to join the Smith Group, you at least have to graduate from Stanford Business School like your sister. Do you have the qualifications for that? Someone who dropped out in 8th grade. By the time you get into Stanford, it'll be too late. When Mother and Judy arrived upon hearing the commotion, there was a moment of silence in the living room. Jeremy looked at Father, his eyes filled with resentment and humiliation. He glared at Father, screaming hysterically, I am your biological son, the one you lost, and now you despise me for being a laborer. So what? This laborer is your biological son. And the pianist is someone you picked up from the orphanage. Have you gone senile? Why do you ignore your own son and keep trying to please that pianist? I think both of you have lost your minds. With a loud slap, Jeremy's face was struck. His father trembled with anger. Get out. The day was chaotic, of course. Jeremy didn't leave. He couldn't bring himself to go. The relationship between father and son had hit rock bottom. Even his mother's attitude towards Jeremy had grown cold. Especially since Jeremy had insulted her too. Moreover, with Lucas's first domestic performance approaching, she had even less time to spare for her own son. On Friday afternoon, his parents changed into their formal attire early, ready to head to the concert hall. Lucas had already reserved front-row tickets for us. Out of courtesy, he had invited Jeremy and Judy to watch his performance a few days earlier. But by 4 o'clock that afternoon, Jeremy was still locked in his room and hadn't come out. Judy, however, dressed up and joined us in the car. The performance was predictably a success. with not a single empty seat. After the thunderous applause, when we went backstage to see Lucas, he was nearly swarmed by reporters. Once the reporters learned who we were, they quickly started taking our photos and bombarding us with questions. Fortunately, my parents were used to such scenes and handled the cameras with calm and grace. Judy was initially a bit awkward, but soon she was handling it effortlessly. After all, having been the heiress of the Smith Group in her previous life, she was no stranger to the cameras. Most of the reporters recognized my parents, a few knew me, but none recognized Judy. Some speculators immediately began guessing about Judy's relationship with Lucas, indirectly asking if she was his girlfriend. Judy covered her mouth and giggled. A well-known national television station wanted to interview my parents about how they raised a piano prodigy, so, at this moment, they were not around, and no one was confronting Judy directly. I just stood quietly on the side, watching her. The next day, rumors about Lucas's romance indeed made the hot search. Judy's face, which was not particularly stunning, appeared on phone screens. Fans expressed disbelief. Yet they couldn't explain why a girl would appear backstage with the man's parents and sister. Lucas's social media was completely overrun. #sob, my idol's taste in women is so poor, better he dated me. #I spent all night trying to figure out where I went wrong. After that day, Judy's attentions towards Lucas noticeably increased. She joined him for breakfast on time in the morning. In the evening, she quietly took a glass of milk from the nanny and delivered it to Lucas's room. They would discuss piano, violin. By the way, Judy played the violin in her previous life. She was not particularly talented nor very diligent. She wasn't up to par with professional violinists, but she was more than enough to impress ordinary people. Lucas had also learned the violin for a while as a child, so Judy would occasionally pick up a violin and humbly ask him for guidance. She didn't feel embarrassed, but I almost died of second-hand embarrassment for her. That evening, Judy, dressed in a light, flowing gown, carried a glass of milk upstairs. Without a word, I grabbed the milk from the tray and drank it all. She looked displeased. "This wasn't for you, I know, but I did it to warn you, don't waste your efforts. Lucas isn't someone you can easily win over." Hearing this, she laughed lightly, her attitude straightforward and challenging. "How do you know I can't win him over? He's just a man after all. You seem quite experienced." Since you don't believe me, then, let's give it a try," she said as I knocked on Lucas's door under her watchful gaze. I deliberately left the door slightly ajar. Lucas had just finished showering and was wearing a bathrobe, his slightly curled, black hair dripping wet. He casually wiped his hair with a towel. His damp face looked exceptionally handsome and fresh. "What's up?" he asked me. I suddenly didn't know how to respond and hesitated for a moment. "How about I help you dry your hair?" he asked, looking at me curiously. "You came here just to help me dry my hair." "Well," I shrugged. "Never mind then." "Wait." He suddenly grabbed me, his dark eyes stirring slightly. "The hairdryer is in the bathroom." "The bathroom? Never mind then. I'll just help you towel it dry." "Sit down," I said, patting the couch. Lucas gave me a puzzled look, a flicker of unidentifiable emotion crossing his face, but he obediently sat down. To dispel the confusion in my heart, I grabbed the towel and roughly rubbed it over his head. "Nancy, you're doing this on purpose, aren't you?" Lucas said, gripping my hand in irritation. I struggled to pull away, but he grabbed it again. Our eyes met. "What did I do to upset you?" Lucas held me tightly, his eyes fierce and domineering like a young wolf, as if he wouldn't let go until I gave him an answer. It had been a long time since I'd seen Lucas like this. In my past life, it was a common sight, remembering him fighting with the bad kids in the orphanage, and then recalling his deep, expressive eyes when he played the piano on stage. It was sometimes hard to believe they were the same person. "You haven't upset me, but I'm about to provoke you," I said, and immediately kissed him on the lips. Lucas seemed stunned for a moment. After a brief pause, he began to respond to my kiss. We passionately kissed on the couch until we were both breathless. Lucas paused for a moment and earnestly held my face. "Are you sure we should do this?" I seemed a bit infatuated with his lips and hurriedly nodded. "Sure." Lucas chuckled softly, his voice tender. "I was just about to ask you why there's a milky taste in your mouth." Crash! A sound of a cup shattering came from outside the door, followed by hurried footsteps fading away. After I declared Lucas's allegiance to Judy, she seemed to back off a bit. I thought she had recognized the difficulty and given up. But I didn't expect her to have another big move planned. That weekend, due to business matters, I flew to Germany. Those 2 days, my parents were scheduled to record that interview show. Only Lucas, Jeremy, and Judy were at home. When I returned, I took the 2 p.m. flight and got home at 1 a.m. Passing by the third floor, I found Lucas's door was unexpectedly open. Just as I stepped inside, someone turned on the light. Judy lay half-dressed on the bed, in a provocative pose, wearing a triumphant smile. Lucas was sleeping quietly beside her. "Welcome back. We've been waiting for you for a long time," she said, using "we," which made me notice Jeremy on the couch. "What have you guys done?" Jeremy glanced at me indifferently and tossed his iPad onto the coffee table. I picked up the tablet and opened the photo gallery. Most of the pictures were of Judy and Lucas, taken in various settings like the bed, car, and bathroom. The angles were cleverly captured. Lucas appeared to be asleep in some, yet thoroughly enjoying himself in others. I put down the iPad, walked over to the bed, and softly called out to Lucas. He didn't react at all. I couldn't imagine how Jeremy and Judy had stooped to such a level in this lifetime. "What do you want?" Lucas's career and the future management rights to the Smith Corporation. "Asking for $2 billion isn't too much, is it?" Judy casually threw out a figure. I looked at Jeremy. "Is it all for money for you too?" He looked straight at me. "What else?" "I can't decide on such a large sum by myself. I need to call my father." After dialing, I briefly explained the situation. My parents were staying at a 5-star hotel near the TV station these days, no more than 40 minutes away from where we lived. They arrived shortly after. Mother rushed to the bedside and called out to Lucas immediately. Just like before, there was no response. Seeing Judy in just a bathrobe, with her hair disheveled, it was clear to her what had happened. Before anyone could react, Mother had already slapped Judy twice across the face. "When did you take these photos? How did you manage to take them?" Judy, holding her face in disbelief, couldn't believe that her mother would hit her. "Mom, you hit me, you ungrateful wretch. Who gave you the audacity to scheme against my son?" Judy's face crumbled. "You're cursing me, shameless creature. What's wrong with me scolding you? Look at what you've turned into, a worthless nobody. Not even fit to carry my son's shoes. Your son, he's not your son. Jeremy and I are your children, you old fool." Judy yelled furiously. "Have you lost your mind?" Mother retorted, visibly upset. "I am mad, and I'm telling you, if you don't come up with $2 billion in 3 days, I'll release all the videos and photos to the public." "You wouldn't dare." "Watch me, Jeremy." "Is this why you came back to the Smith family?" Father asked hoarsely, his face tense and his gaze stern as he looked at the instigator sitting on the couch. "You show no kindness. I show no loyalty. You all drove me to this." The other coldly replied. "How much do you want?" $2 billion. "Jeremy, have you lost your mind?" Mother cursed loudly. "I'm not mad. If you don't want to pay, then wait for Lucas to be ruined and the Smith Corporation to collapse." Jeremy's eyes glinted fiercely. "You wouldn't want your son's issues to affect the company's stock prices, would you?" Mother, driven to fury, raised her hand to strike Jeremy again but was pushed away by him. I walked over and steadied her. "Dad, Mom, please leave. I'll talk to them." Father gave me a deep look, then dragged the furious mother away. I opened the iPad, flipping through those explicit and bold photos, and said calmly, "Not only will I not give you $2 billion, I won't even give you 20. Judy scoffed coldly. "Nancy, I'd like to see how stubborn you can be." "Judy, if it were you from your past life, you might have had a chance to seduce Lucas. This life, don't you have any self-awareness about what you've become?" Judy's eyes widened in shock as if she had seen a ghost. She stared at me unblinkingly, her lips quivering. "Nancy, you've been reborn too, haven't you?" I chuckled coldly. Without responding, Jeremy looked from me to Judy, thinking he had misheard. "No wonder. That's why you ended up with Lucas back then." She suddenly looked up, her eyes brimming with immense hatred. "That day at the orphanage, you deliberately stopped Mom and Dad from adopting me, didn't you?" I shook my head. "It's more than that. I suggested to Mom that we move the whole family to Germany, advised Dad to sell the old house, and even arranged for Uncle Bob to work at the northern branch. I wanted to sever all your ties with our Smith family." "You wretch." Judy completely lost her composure, and a slap came flying towards me. He tightly gripped my wrist. "Thank you for the compliment. if I can take down Jeremy, you're certainly no challenge. Jeremy seemed to realize something, his expression turning grave as he looked over. Nancy, what the hell do you mean by that? Judy had already figured it out. You intentionally let the traffickers take him. No, I simply chose to preserve my own safety wisely. Nancy, Jeremy leaped at me, lunging forward and clutching my neck tightly, his eyes bloodshot. I've suspected this for a while. You deliberately did nothing to help, making my life worse than a dog's these years. You vile woman. I quickly grabbed a porcelain vase from the bookshelf and smashed it on his head. Jeremy instantly released me, wincing in pain. You deserve a life worse than a dog's because you behave like an animal. You should live like one. I already saved you once. But how did you repay me? With utter ingratitude. Do you know how happy I am every time I hear about your miserable life over the years? I feel like throwing a party. Ah, Jeremy, even you have your day. Ha ha ha, I can't help but laugh. How did you manage to be so ugly and short all your life, even shorter than me? Judy, how do you manage not to laugh each time you see him? He's 15 centimeters shorter than in his last life. It must have been hard searching for him for so many years, but it's all been in vain. This life's Jeremy is just a hopeless case, better suited to hauling bricks on a construction site. Judy was seething with rage, her teeth gritting audibly. So what? At least I turned the tables once. I won in the last life. You did turn the tables once, but that was in the past. Now you're poor and penniless. That's your current situation. I hope you have the money for a kidney transplant when your kidney disease comes back. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, Judy burst into hysterical laughter. Why would I be out of money? I'm about to get 2 billion, right? You wouldn't want to see Lucas's career ruined by your actions, would you? Surely you don't want to see the Smith Corporation go bankrupt. I didn't argue with her, but instead pulled up the surveillance footage from Lucas's room and the downstairs garage on my phone. In the footage, Judy and Jeremy were seen supporting an unconscious Lucas into the car, setting up the angle, and then frantically taking photos with their phones. Not long after, they carried him back into the elevator and into a room on the 3rd floor, continuing their scheme. Reborn into this world, these two were both greedy and foolish. How much did you just ask for? 2 billion. Sorry, I don't have 2 billion, but I'll try my best to get the judge to give you 20 years, though I know that's unlikely, since you haven't committed murder or arson. At most, you'll get 3 to 5 years and then you'll be out. I'll make sure you both leave my house penniless, like stray dogs, without a cent to your names, and I'll even throw in a meal in jail for each of you. Judy and Jeremy hadn't expected such a swift reversal. The expressions on their faces were indescribable, almost crying from their own stupidity. Why are you doing this to me? You already have everything in this life. Why can't you let me be? Judy looked up at me and muttered. You forced my hand, Nancy. If it comes to it, we'll die together. Without money, I won't last long anyway. It might be good to take someone down with me before I die. She walked over emotionlessly and yanked my hair. She desperately pulled me towards the balcony. Judy, Jeremy called out to her from behind. Judy's expression was that of a madwoman as she clutched at my hair and broke down screaming on the balcony. Why? Jeremy, why are you so useless in this life? Why can't you protect me like you did in our past lives? Do you know how long I've been looking for you? I've searched for you for 14 years, a full 14 years. I've suffered so much, been deceived and taken advantage of, rushing to any lead about you, only to end up like this. I might as well end it all, destroy everything. Nancy, don't think you'll get away either. We might as well die together. She crazily dragged me, leaning over the balcony's edge. The railing here was not very high, barely reaching the waist, and it was easy to accidentally fall over. Judy had completely lost her mind. I clung tightly to the railing, trying to keep my body stable. To avoid dying with her, I had to compromise. Judy, there's 5 million in cash in my room. You and Jeremy take it and hurry away. But you have to promise me that you'll never come back to the Smiths. Her frantic movements suddenly stopped. What did you say? If you promise never to return to the Smiths, I won't call the police, and you can have the 5 million for future surgeries. Jeremy also heard this. 5 million to get rid of me. Are you insane? Greed knows no bounds. That's all the cash I have. It's up to you whether you take it or not. Judy's emotions gradually stabilized. How do I know you'll keep your word? What if you call the police as soon as we leave? I can give you the money in front of our parents. As long as you never return to the Smiths, and I won't release the contents of the surveillance. As for calling the police, Jeremy is still their biological son, although they are utterly disappointed in him. They wouldn't go to extremes, perhaps feeling that my words made sense. Judy let go of me. Let's do as you say. Jeremy, carrying 2 large bags of cash, came to the underground parking lot. As I said, our parents were utterly disappointed in him, knowing he was leaving. They didn't bother to see him off. Judy picked the red Lamborghini, her favorite car from her past life. These cars, which Lucas and I had driven abroad, had all been recently shipped back. After so many years, Judy was once again sitting in her favorite car. Her pleasure was evident. Just as Jeremy was about to put the bags in the car, she suddenly changed her mind. Wait, let's take the Porsche. Judy gave me a knowingly clever look. I reluctantly handed her another set of car keys. As the car started, Judy smiled meaningfully. Nancy, we'll take the 5 million, but how long this money will last is also an unknown, right? I feigned shock as I watched her. A mix of frustration, anger, and regret surged in my eyes, but all I could do was glare helplessly. The car sped away, accompanied by Judy's triumphant laughter. I collected my expression and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Looking out at the winding mountain road opposite, Uncle Bob's words echoed in my ears. Strange. Miss Nancy, why do you like living on such a high mountain? Although the scenery is lovely, why, the translation is, you young people really need to be careful when driving up here. It's no joke. There's a sheer cliff right by the road. Uncle Bob's words were actually not quite right. I don't enjoy living on these high mountains at all. There are too many mosquitoes, and the humidity is intense. Most importantly, that mountain road is truly terrifying. With a sheer cliff right beside it that's even more daunting. I often think, what if the car suddenly loses control while I'm driving on this road? That would be the end of me. Yet, I still bought a house here without looking back. For this, I even made a secret trip back to the country. After all, it took me a long time to find a place that really suited my wishes. Jeremy, Judy, I've put so much thought into choosing this spot with good feng shui for you. I guess I've done right by you. Amid these scattered thoughts, under the deep night sky, the car on the road indeed began to drift from side to side. I seemed to hear a piercing scream tearing through the night. In less than 2 seconds, there was a loud bang. The car crashed through the barrier and plunged straight down the cliff. Sigh, next month, I better hurry up and sell the house. I don't want to live here another day. When the police notified us to rush to the hospital, Judy had already passed away. Jeremy was in emergency care. That was quite unexpected to me. I didn't expect him to have such a strong will to live. Several of us stayed in the hospital for a whole day and night, concerned that my aging parents couldn't handle it. I had Bob the driver take them back to rest a bit and return later to replace me. This decision proved to be wise. Not long after they left, the doctor told me Jeremy had woken up, but his chances were slim. And it was best to have his parents come and say their goodbyes. Of course, I wouldn't allow that. I walked into the hospital room. Jeremy was horrifically injured. I heard that a tree branch had pierced through the windshield and straight through his body, as well as the passenger seat. Such a tenacious branch. I tried not to look below his neck, not wanting to leave myself with mental scars. If you have anything to say, I'll relay it to Mom and Dad. Of course, it's best if the topic avoids sensitive issues, like your suspicions about me tampering with the car, and so on. I want to see Mom and Dad. Jeremy weakly managed to say a few words. They've been taken home by Uncle Bob. They won't be able to come back for a while. A flicker of despair crossed Jeremy's face, the kind of despair one has before death. His face immediately turned ashen. He slowly spoke again. Nancy, in this life, you must be very pleased. What does that mean? I looked at him suspiciously. Are you recalling things from a past life? Even in his weakened state, Jeremy's eyes conveyed an arrogance that I was all too familiar with, and that air of haughtiness, keeping others at a distance. This demeanor, it was definitely the Jeremy from a past life. Last night's car accident. Cough, cough, cough. It was you, wasn't it? Jeremy spoke as blood trickled from his mouth. It seemed he not only regained memories from a past life, but his intelligence had also sharpened considerably. Luckily there were no cameras in the room, so I indulged in a little talk. Yes, swapping Lucas and my fate from a past life for yours and Judy's in this life seems fair. I'm not a person of many virtues, but I am certainly one for getting even. Jeremy stared straight at me, his mouth beginning to tremble. Hate me. Go ahead and hate me. My long-sought revenge is finally fulfilled. And I rejoice. I just want to know, when were you reborn? I swear, I have never spoken so earnestly in my life. It was the day I encountered the human traffickers, don't you remember? When that old woman took you away, I even waved goodbye to you. At that time, I said, brother, let's meet again in 15 years. But it was too far, you probably didn't hear. Cough cough, cough cough cough. Jeremy was coughing up blood violently. I shook my head and continued to speak my heart to him. Not only that, I also know where you were sold to when you were a child. The last time you talked to mom and dad, I guessed it was that place. Jeremy, actually, I've always known where you were taken all those years. I just didn't want mom and dad to bring you back, because I told you we couldn't meet until 15 years later. We could only delay it, not hasten it. Jeremy's coughing became more severe, and the blood flowed more profusely. He pointed at me tremblingly, his eyes beginning to lose focus. You are so cruel. Am I cruel? Of course. How else could I avenge? In my previous life, when I learned that Lucas had been killed by you, I thought to myself that one day I would become a demon and claim your and Judy's lives. When Jeremy was buried, our mother cried her eyes out. Our father seemed to age overnight. No one expected that their biological son, who had only recently acknowledged them, would meet such an end. It doesn't matter. The heartache and pain are only temporary. After a while, when the grief subsides, they will resume their calm and untroubled lives. In my previous life, it was me. This life, it was Jeremy. Nothing could affect the two of them. Our parents were quite fair, not favoring one over the other, although I had also resented them. That's just how life is. What can you do? At least in this life, they succeeded with Lucas. They ensured my young years were safe and smooth, free from the turmoil and hardships of my previous life. They also made him the most dazzling star among people. Just for that, I am willing to reconcile with them, because Judy and Jeremy had administered some hallucinogens and sedatives. Lucas stayed in the hospital for a few days. On Sunday, Uncle Bob picked him up from the hospital. The house was quiet, just right for Jeremy's 7th-day memorial. And our parents went to the temple. I was browsing the internet, thinking about when would be a good time to put the house on the market. Maybe in a month or two. How are you? Lucas came over, looking at me with some concern. I nodded. He was slightly taken aback. After a moment, he hugged me tightly, his tone gentle. If you want to cry, just let it out. You don't have to hold it in. I turned off my phone, a bit bewildered. Why would I cry? Lucas let go, his eyes probing. Are you really okay? My relationship with Jeremy wasn't as good as you might think. After so many years without seeing each other, he was like a stranger, not to mention what he and Judy did to you this time. Lucas seemed to remember something. Those photos, it's okay, I've taken care of it. Thinking of him and Judy once intimately sharing a bed, I felt incredibly uncomfortable and couldn't help complaining. How can you be so unguarded against others? Even at home, you should stay alert. He held his forehead. Do you want to hear what you're saying? Fortunately, you didn't actually do anything substantial with Judy. Otherwise, you might as well stay single for life. You can be with anyone, just not Judy. He seemed to sense something was off and immediately interjected. What do you mean by that? That I can be with anyone? I covered my mouth, looking apologetic. Sorry, I misspoke. You can't be with anyone, and especially not Judy. Do you two have a history? It's a long story. Lucas's brows furrowed, seemingly wanting to ask more. All right, today Nanny is off, so nobody's cooking at home, so let's go out and buy some groceries to cook ourselves. Now, yeah, I'll order a ride online. He suddenly looked puzzled. Why don't we just drive there? My fingers paused slightly on the screen. We shouldn't use the car at home for now. I need to get someone to check it in a few days. Why, such a curious baby. I rubbed his forehead. No particular reason, it's a secret. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.